of Baseball Operations Dave Dombrowski and General Manager Sam Fold available to take some questions, to take a little break from their scouting meetings upstairs. So if you have a question, just raise your hand. We'll pass you a mic, as Todd Zalecki has already, and we'll go starting with Todd.
Hey, Dave.
Morning.
Morning. Bryce saw Dr. Elatrash on Monday.
Yes.
What is the update?
He is going to have surgery next Wednesday, a week from today, by Dr. Elatrash. We have no prognosis really until he goes into the elbow and takes a look at it at that time. But he will have surgery on Wednesday.
So we don't know if it's Tommy John or there was another one that's more similar to the Reese Hoskins
Yes,
surgery.
we're not sure of that. We're not sure of that. So at this point, we'll have something at that time with the surgery and the anticipation something will happen. I would think it will slow him down for the season, but we'll know more next week.
Does that impact how you tackle the offseason or not?
Well, it could, but I don't know that until we really get the full diagnosis of it. So, I mean, we're having meetings now. We cover hopefully every single topic we can think of, possible clubs, free agent signings, trades, all of that stuff. So, in the back of our mind, there is will be discussions of, what do we do if, which may be nothing, because, we're in a situation that, right now we're looking at it coming back and DH and at some portion of it. We have other players that can DH, between, when you look around Schwarber and Castellanos and Hoskins and Bohm and Realmuto, if we want to give him some time off. So we need to kind of fit that all into the total picture of what we'll be doing.
It said this summer that if he had Tommy John, if it got to that extreme, he kind of compared. Ohtani had Tommy John surgery, where he ended up missing a little bit of time early on, then DHing. Is that kind of your understanding of it as well?
Well, the problem you end up, and that's why everybody's ligament's different on where it could be torn and how much of a tear it is and all. So until they get in there, we're really not sure.
Okay, go to John in the back, middle.
So for your planning purposes, when you go into this not knowing maybe the amount of time, are you looking at you could possibly not have him for the first couple months, or it could be half a season that he's able to be out there and DHing?
I really don't have anything more to say on it other than that, because I have to really wait. So that's really where we are on it. We just have to wait and see what happens. So.
Scott, right in the front.
You guys got through, 2 months without him this year, and had a really good record during that time. Can you kind of lean on, guys like Derek Hall and some guys who helped get you through during the season? Is that kind of something that's been discussed? Is that, hey, look, we did this during the year, we can do this for 2 months or 3 months next year? Well,
we like some of our alternatives that we have. And I think like anything else, you determine how you're going to address your club in total. We've talked about, we've lost free agent players. It's left us with starting pitching need. Some of it from internal, but also to look at that market. We've talked about, Gene is not back with us at this point. We have flexibility to look at what the middle infield situation would be. So we have some different things, that relief pitching, because we lost some of those. So I think you fit all of those things in together and see what you think makes your best club. But we do have some people that we like, and I think it is dependent upon, I think, again, when we originally, and sometimes best laid plans go for naught, when we originally made the Schwarber-Castellanos signing, the idea was that one of them would be our DH the majority of the time and one play in the outfield. Well, they both play in the outfield. So it does open up the position that you could have some flexibility on who you DH for a short time period. But we like what Derek Hall did for us. We like Derek Hall. Do we think that using him in a role, depending upon the time compared to what other moves we may make, gives us the best chance to win? We'll just have to wait and see.
Okay, Tim in the back, in the center.
Dave, what did you see from Castellanos this year that maybe his production wasn't at the level it's typically been?
Well, Castellanos is normally an offensive force. I mean, he can hit, and he uses the whole field. He drives the ball. I think probably one of his biggest problems, I mean, he has always been in a situation where he's not a real disciplined strike zone hitter. This year he was even worse in that regard. So I don't think that helped him at times. I'm not sure how much of it also was with dealing with all the adjustments that just come with signing with a new club, all the adjustment, new baby coming into the life in May, all of that. So some of that could be from a mental perspective. There's no reason why he still should not hit with authority. Sometimes you just got to take that step back, have a winter time, and come back. But I mean, if you watch him take batting practice, he still drives the ball all over the place. He still has tremendous power. He's a hitter. He did not have a good year offensively this year, but I think he'll also have to come with some additional strike zone discipline.
Beyond the oblique injury, was he dealing with anything throughout the season?
No. Oh, well, I can't say he ever had nothing, but nothing of major consequence. And I really, at the end, it's a shame because he really started to swing the bat better, and then he had the oblique, which shut him down. And we had to hurry him back, of course, for the postseason. So it's hard to kind of jump in after that time down and come back and hit. So he gave it everything he can. He had some good plate appearances, but I don't think that at the end of the season would be his actual best because he just didn't have the time to come back and properly get his timing back.
Okay, Alex in the front left.
This is for either Dave or Sam. There are a bunch of rule changes heading into the 2023 season, but specifically with the ban of the defensive shift, how do you think that that'll impact some of your decision-making this offseason?
Well, I don't think there are changes. I mean, and of course, you take those into consideration. So banning of the shift, it may change some of the players' batting averages, but depends on who that is. I'm not sure that you put a lot. We already have a guy like Schwarber and Hoskins that are two of the better guys that should benefit by that. I do think it comes into play on your defense up the middle because you can't shift over to the other. So you can't cover a guy that maybe doesn't have as much range as another player would be. But I still think you can cover for some of that still by shifting. So it comes into play, but I'd have to say to a point. We still haven't been a club that has just signed. We had Gene, so we had a benefit in that regard, and Stott has good range at second base. So we really don't have the stationary type second baseman that some clubs may have more of because they knew that they could shift themselves out of that. We really haven't had those type of guys at second.
Okay, Dave, right in the middle.
Hey, Dave. To follow up on Nick, what gives you the confidence that next season he can perform in this market to the level that you expect him to perform?
I don't think this market was his reason behind not performing. I mean, some people, I think, could be like that. I don't think that was his reason. I think he's always hit, and you look at people that are hitters, they do have a downtime. Sometimes they try too hard coming off as free agents. He did have a lot of adjustments in his life. I mean, all things he really needs to work through. It just didn't happen for him. But I think having all that with the winter time where he can kind of just settle in and be ready to go, I think will benefit him a great deal.
Okay, Todd on the left.
Would you guys be surprised if you didn't get one of those 4 free agent shortstops, considering the need right now?
I wouldn't say that I'd be surprised. I just would say that, again, we're open to a lot of things. We have a shortstop that we like in Sosa. So we'll just wait and see.
Okay, Jimmy on the right.
Dave, just on Bryce, did your doctors looked at him last week, and
Yes.
did they also come to the same conclusion as Dr. Elatrosh that he needed surgery?
Well, they were going to wait till Dr. Elatrosh saw him. And so they thought the possibility exists. Our trainer, Paul Buchheit, went out there with him, so he was at both of the visits. And then Dr. Cohen is still on the phone with Dr. Elatrosh at that time. So so we had consistent information. But I think also the feeling is we just need to wait till they get in there. Yes.
And how about Wheeler? How's his condition? Obviously, he really threw well that last night, but there were, spent some time, a month on the IL, and there was that fatigue issue. Is he healthy in you guys' analysis, in your guys' analysis?
Yes.
Is nothing medically planned for him this offseason?
Well, let me just say, there's a lot of players that have health things that we follow up on that I really can't disclose with HIPAA type of rules. But, and numerous. I mean, basically, after a long season, almost every player you have some type of follow-up on. But we don't have any type of medical concerns at this point with him going into next season.
And on Reese Hoskins, is anything planned with him for the winter to work on his defense?
Well, I can't say that there's anything he's going to be doing in the winter time for his defense.
You've done that with other players over the years.
Yeah, but he worked hard on it, and he'll work hard in the spring, and maybe somebody will talk to him at some point. Right now, we know. I mean, Reese is one. He actually improved metrically when you look at it this year compared to how he has been in the past. He's not a Gold Glove first baseman. I think you just have to come up with the reality. He works very, very hard. I'm sure he'll continue to do that during spring training. We don't have any specifics right now, but we're just finishing the season and getting through the year. Does he go down to Clearwater early and somebody's there? I cannot answer that at this point.
Just wondering where you come down on in your quest to improve the club in terms of need. Would it be lineup? We know what the shortstop market is, middle infield flexibility, or possibly rotation with, Wheeler and Nola experience some fatigue. You might be breaking in a young guy next year. Would you be looking to improve that rotation either with depth or even maybe more than that, something maybe that profiles closer to the top of the rotation?
Well, and this way, we're open to and feel that we probably need to do something from a starting pitching perspective, at least somebody there at depth, even though we have the big three guys. And we have Falter and Sanchez and somebody like Painter coming. We know how important depth is. So we're open-minded to that. Doesn't necessarily have to be a top-of-the-rotation type guy, but we'll explore that market. I think like almost every other club in baseball, we're going to be open-minded to the relief pitching. We lost some of those guys, too, even though we have a nice foundation of Sir Anthony Alvarado, Brogdon back, and some other people back there. And then we're going to just keep kind of open-minded towards middle infield. We have with Gene's situation being a free agent. We have the versatility of playing start at short or second. And we'll just kind of explore where that takes us.
Okay, John Clark in the middle.
One other question about Bryce. Going into the examinations, was there hope and was there some expectations that maybe he wouldn't need surgery? So is there disappointment that this is the outcome with either the team or Bryce?
Well, I can't say there was expectations of that. I mean, we know something was wrong there. So we just didn't really know what to expect at that point. We always knew this was a possibility. We've known that for months, really. I mean, I think everybody else knew that when he was shut down. We wouldn't know until he got examined, and that was going to wait till after the season, which is what ended up happening. So there was I can't say, we just had to wait to see what took place.
Okay, Mike on the right.
Dave, the wear and tear of the playoffs, do you see Nola, Wheeler, Ranger being healthy at the start of the season and 100% ready to go? And also, the three rookies, do you see any of them possibly in the starting rotation at the start of next season?
Well, the three rookies being, which three are you referring to?
Painter, McGarry, and Abel.
Okay. So those guys, at this point, I mean, Wheeler, Nola, Suarez, they're healthy. They pitched a lot of innings. I mean, you're always going to watch that going into the next year. But I don't know why they wouldn't be ready to pitch the season. They're ready to go. They'll be ready to go. I've had this throughout my career that pitchers were going, some of the best 4 years in a row making the playoffs and pitching these numbers of innings or more, and we're already ready to go. So I don't really think that that's an issue. But, if somebody is a little bit tired or a little bit sore, you have to be cognizant of that when you get into spring training. But that's like any other pitcher. I mean, you always are aware of those type of things. As we said, those three guys will come to spring training with us. I can't say there's the anticipation that they're going to make our rotation to start the season. Some are further along than others. But they'll be in camp, and once you're in camp, anything can happen. We are keeping a spot open for a youngster And when I say youngster, not only includes those three, that's why I asked who else would Falter and Sanchez fit into that category, and anybody else who may join it. Now, could two? Yeah, perhaps two could, but we're really only looking at one. That's why I think when we talk about adding somebody, I think makes sense, because when you start, not that two at some point won't be pitching in your rotation at some time. And Falter pitched, I guess, a half a season, primarily from a starting perspective, and he won 5-6 games for us this year starting. So, but I do think that having another veteran arm, we lost Syndergaard, we've lost Gibson, we lost Eflin. When I say that they're free agents, doesn't mean that none of them can't come back, but we do need to, in our own mind, fill a slot like that.
Okay. Howard in the front.
Dave, it sounds like you left the door open for Segura as a free agent to possibly come back. The first question with that is, if you sign a shortstop, is that kind of out of the picture? And the second part of my question is Zach Eflin a possibility also, or has that ship sailed?
Well, first of all, I think we would sign one middle infielder if we do that. So I don't think whomever it would be, if it be a second baseman or a shortstop, we have Stott. We like Stott. We want Stott to play. We think he's only going to get better. We do like Sosa too, but I think at least knowing that we do want Stott to play, we could use Sosa as a utility guy, but we think Stott's an everyday player. So if we sign one, it precludes anything else at this point. The second part was in regard, and Zach Eflin. So in Zach, we like Zach. We like him a lot. The door's not closed on him by any means due to our likeness. It would just be a matter of what somebody does contractually, what we would do contractually for whatever reason.
Okay. Bill on the right.
Kind of to follow up, because you have so many young pitchers that could be ready sooner rather than later, if you get into the starting pitcher market, would you prefer to do something like on a one-year deal, something shorter term, so that those guys aren't blocked?
I think we're open-minded to various alternatives. We'll just have to kind of weigh where it comes. We do like our young starting pitching, but I've also kind of learned that you never have too much depth at that position, and if you ever end up having too much, you always have trade possibilities too.
Nola, sorry, I have two more. Nola, you picked up his option. Are you going to open the negotiations with him on a longer-term contract?
Well, I just would say we'd love to have Aaron in the organization for a long time.
And then, listen, I guess luxury tax, do you feel you'll be over it again? Would you like to stay under it? Are you kind of open-minded on that?
Well, without any declaration, you'd always like to stay under, because, again, I've said before, you'd really rather not be penalized, because that's why they call it a penalty. But I think we're open-minded to having the best club we possibly can and see where it takes us.
Okay. Alex on the left.
Last season, when Bryce went down, it opened a spot for Derek Hall in the roster. Do you guys see that as a possibility, depending on how much time he misses because of surgery in 2023?
It could be. Yeah, I mean, we like Derek Hall. He did a good job for us. He really did. So it provides us some flexibility in that regard. So he could be a guy that would benefit because of that.
And then a quick second question, following up on the spot that you're envisioning for a younger pitcher, just what would you need to see from them, I guess, out of spring training? Like, what are you looking for in particular?
Well, usually you're looking to have, first of all, you have stuff to get big league hitters out. That's a good place to start. Secondly, their secondary pitches that they can throw more than one pitch for strikes. How do they do things as fielder position, hold runners on, those parts of it. How do they fit in from a comfort standpoint? Do they seem like they're overwhelmed to come into the situations? Can also be important. The consistency of throwing strikes. Those are all factors that would come into play.
Okay. Dave, right in the middle.
Thanks, Kevin. Dave, to follow up on the tax, I understand you prefer to stay under
Sure.
it, but coming within 2 wins of a world championship after going over it for the first time ever this past season, how much does getting that close make you want to do something to push the needle a little bit?
Well, we're going to push the needle, try to win. I mean, we're close, right? I mean, we're going to try to win. We won, and I think we have a good ball club. We really played well after the first third of the season, basically, and including the postseason. So we're going to try to win. Again, you asked me would I prefer to be under it. Yeah, I would prefer to be under it, but I didn't say we were going to be under it. So we're going to try to do what we can to make our club a championship caliber club. But we also want to be, we want to be good for years to come too. So I don't want to look like, hey, we're just going to sacrifice everything. We did. One of the reasons we were able to win was also that the young players playing well for us. And I think good clubs have young players that contribute. So we want to be able to continue that type of trend for us.
Okay, Marcus on the left.
One for Sam. Sam, when you look at what Reese did this year, how do you regard his season and what you got kind of for the value and what his value is next season, considering what his arbitration number is probably going to be?
Yeah, I think Reese was a really productive part of our lineup, part of our offense. Like in years past, he carried us at times. Obviously came up with a couple huge hits in the postseason and helped us advance to where we ended up getting. He had a good, solid year. I think, Reese has forever been able to carry a team, and he's shown that throughout the course of his Phillies career. And I think he's also had times where there were 2-3 weeks where he struggled to get on base and struggled to kind of maintain that same at-bat quality. I thought he did a good job of sort of smoothing out those waves this year. I thought this may have been his most consistent offensive year. As Dave said, he continues to work hard on the defensive end. And really, I think you can't state enough what he means in the clubhouse. He's a really valuable member of that group. He's really been the core of this group for a long time. So despite all the good things that he does, between the lines, I think what we really appreciate maybe most out of Reese is just what he brings to his teammates, the kind of player he is, kind of relationships he has with staff. It's all really, really good stuff. And I don't think we can ever lose sight of that.
Dave, it sounds as though if the market is outrageous, except for maybe a fill-in, back-end, middle rotation starter, that between the youth and between the growth that you hope to see from Nick and younger players like Bryson, you might be set. You might be okay going into 2023 largely undifferent, kind of the same club.
Well, I mean, could we go into it? It's like there. We could open up right now with the lineup, what we have. If you put Sosa at short and you put Stott at second base, we have enough outfielders that we could fill in with where Bryce's situation would be no matter what would take place. But we're always looking to get better. So, I mean, it's not, I don't want to say that we're just sitting here and going to bring back the same club and we're content to do that. We're going to look to get better. Could we? I guess we could. I mean, anything ends up happening, but we're not looking to do that.
Okay, Todd on the left.
Dave, how right here? How do you look at the payroll in that you have Harper, Wheeler, Castellanos, Realmuto, Schwarber, all $85 million guys or more in terms of contract sizes? How much flexibility do you think you have to add another star-type player if you find yourself within striking distance to get one of those types of players?
I think we have flexibility. I mean, we did lose a couple of guys that made significant dollars, in fact, more than one this year, so we have some flexibility.
Okay, that's Scott and then Dave Murphy.
Dave, you touched on, having teams that made the playoffs year over year and dealing with the toll that takes on player health and whatnot. Just to sort of follow on that a little bit, how much of your discussions have to factor that in, given that in this case, the majority of them are doing this now for the first time? They played a month longer than they're accustomed to, and how much of that has to get baked into what you do decide to do in terms of how you build your roster?
Well, it's a discussion point. You also have to look at your early season schedule, how many days you have off, how often you're going to pitch them. I mean, you have to be a little careful, too, because if you take it too easy with guys, sometimes they're not ready to pitch, and it hurts them the next year more, too. I mean, so you have to factor all those things in. I don't think, no matter what happened in the postseason, which was good most of the way, and especially from the pitching perspective, the guys pitch well. We never brought guys back on short rest all year long, even in the postseason. We just never did that. They had a lot of rest in the postseason, actually, with their start. Very few of them were just on 5 days. So even then, you're looking towards how you can watch guys, because you don't want to hurt people. So I don't think that, I mean, they've pitched more innings, but they weren't going out there where they were hurt at that particular time. You just have to be aware that, you know, guys throw a certain number of pitches, they throw a certain number of innings, that you're always cognizant of that, and you watch that in spring training, but it doesn't mean that you just don't pitch them or shut them down. In fact, like, I've seen that happen with some guys, and sometimes that's worse for them than continuing to pitch them forward, because pitchers are made to pitch. Depending on what ends up happening. And again, you have injuries, you have circumstances that could be different, but they need to get out there and need to get their arms ready. So we're cognizant of all those things. I do think we do want to add somebody for our starting, because we do like those 3 guys at the top and we like our young people. But again, you're talking about depth, and even if you went long into the season or went short into the season and ended on whatever it was, October 5th, we'd still be cognizant of that.
And also just, 10 days removed from the last game, how much feedback have you received from JT on maybe how he's feeling, given that, I think he ended up catching 200 or so more innings than anybody else in the game this year. Have you gotten any feedback from him on how his body feels, and can he continue to maintain the workload, 130 games or so that he's maintained all these last 5 years?
Well, he when I talked to him during the season, he felt very good. He said, I haven't felt this good per se in a few years. Now, 2 years ago, so 2021, it was sort of a tough start from the very beginning. It hurt his hand, and so it hurt his thumb at that point, and then ended up battling through it. You're always cognizant. And we did during the season, even though he did not, he caught so many innings. It wasn't like he'd catch 3 weeks in a row. He gave him rest with Stubbs back there. So, it's a situation where he's such an elite athlete that I'm not sure why he would not be able to catch a significant number of innings in games, and he thrives on that, really. I was talking to somebody, I won't tell you who, but that knows him quite well, said, remember, Randy Hundley used to catch 162 games a year. So he wasn't saying that we're looking to put, but it's just that, hey, catchers have caught a lot of innings and they've been fine, and he's an elite player. And not only an elite player, he's an elite athlete that works extremely hard, that takes great pride. And he's a really good player, and he had a great year. And I don't know why he can't continue to do that for a while.
Okay, Dave Murphy.
Dave, I'm wondering, in your meetings, in these scouting meetings, how big of a focal point is getting the bullpen to a point where, you look at a team like the Astros where they just, run 7-8 guys out there that, are throwing 95 and getting ground balls. And, your hitters talked a lot about it in the playoffs, at how much of a factor that was. You mentioned Alvarado, Dominguez, Blatty, Brogdon. But, how much are you really – how do you get your bullpen to a point where it has that depth, where you're not necessarily, leaning on guys to throw 25 pitches and get you 4 or 5 outs in a high leverage situation?
Well, you're always looking for it to be, as deep as possible. I think when you're talking about the Astros, you're talking about an exceptional bullpen that worked out. And even they had their top-end guys that they went to in a short series. So you didn't get to the back 12, 13. You went to their top 4 guys that they went to on a regular basis. And part of that also had to deal with their starting pitchers going deep into games. So it's kind of a combination of both. But with those guys that you have, you end up trying to add some minor league arms that we have that we feel good about, that have the potential to pitch for us out of there. And then we go out and try to add another arm or two. Unfortunately for us, like Knebel would have been another arm like that, but he got hurt. So he wasn't. So that's what your goal is, to try to do that through that combination of factors, people that you have, people coming through your system, and then make the right addition or two.
I mean, you mentioned Knievel. What do you make of the reliever market is quite volatile year to year. It seems like very difficult to predict at times whether guys, bounce back or regress or whatever. How do you approach, the free agent market in that regard? Kind of measuring what you've seen over X number of years versus what, you might see moving forward.
Well, you do a lot of work on it. I don't have any magical answers to that, and I don't know that anybody has magical answers. I think what you do is you try to figure that out as much as you possibly can. I wouldn't really give you what we look at more than others look. Actually, our bullpen pitched pretty well for us this year as time went on, so we were really happy with it. But you're right, it's a volatile position. But you see a couple clubs that, right now they've really gone big into. Houston signed Montero for big dollars, and San Diego signed a couple of guys to big dollars, so they've sort of taken a different route. They've gone that way. So I don't know that there's any specific one thing we look other than a combination of all the information that we have to try to make the most intelligent decision that we can.
Last question. Alec Bohm, did he change anything about the way you look at him over the course of this season? Rob Thompson mentioned he's, maybe the most improved player that he's ever had as a manager over the course of a season. The defense is what it was in the postseason. What do you make of that? And in your experience, have you seen the playoffs be kind of a springboard for young guys like Bohm, Marsh, Suarez, Bryson Stott?
Well, I'll start with the second question then with that. They can be. Because you're exposed to something that you've never been exposed to before. And I think with that, you also can get confidence that even though you're told, even though you believe in yourself, all of a sudden you're there, you're doing it, and you're doing it against the best competition you possibly can in the game. And everybody in the world's watching you, per se, in the baseball world. So it can help you. I think that some of those youngsters that we're talking about, they just went through a long season. They'll benefit by the experience they had. They wouldn't probably tell you this, but they were probably tired at the end. I look at Bryson Stott, for example, what he went through the year, and he really started taking off with the bat, and at the end went down a little bit. When you think about last year in 2021, he went to the Instructional League. I should say, he went to the Arizona Fall League, not the Arizona Fall League. Played every day there. Went to the mini camp we had in Clearwater, got a lot of reps there, went to spring training with the big league club, a lot of reps there because he's trying to make a team, played a lot all year long, played late into the year. He almost went a whole year without ever getting time off. He has to be tired. He's not so I think that he'll benefit by not only the exposure and experience, but now having a winter time to get some time down. And Marsh was the same way and that. But I do think it can benefit them a great deal, the exposure that they have, because they can regroup themselves in what they've been exposed to. So, yes. In Bohm's case, I think there's a couple of factors. One is he worked very, very hard on his defense with Bobby Dickerson. Bobby Dickerson helped him a lot from a defensive perspective. And then I'd also say from the offensive perspective, Kevin Long worked with him very hard. He tip of the cap to Alec because he worked hard with both of them on all facets of his game. He changed his swing from the year before. He drove the ball much better, caught up with the fastball much better. So, yes, I do think that he made significant changes in that regard. And I think with that, he also started to grow from a confidence perspective. And so you could see the difference in him as the year went on, just even being around him. You could just sense that he was more open, talking more. Just, to me, he just seemed like a different person as far as confidence was concerned. So I think all of a sudden you start to see maybe, and I can't tell you he had doubts because I never approached that type of talk, but if you're in a position where in your own mind you're wondering how you're doing, well, he did everything he could to work himself through that on both sides of the ball. From an offensive and defensive perspective, and you could see that he started to gain in confidence.
Okay, we'll finish up with just a couple more, beginning with Howard.
Both you guys had just said really good things about Rhys Hoskins. I have no problem with that. But I got to deal with the fans calling in and addressing what was a lot of the obvious questions. So my question, what are you laughing about? My question is the starting 8 pretty much untouchable? I broadened it for trades.
Well, I would never make a statement like that because you never know at this time of year what ends up happening. We're just starting the winter time. We're very comfortable with the club that we have, but I would never make a declaration on any team that anybody's untouchable. So, we deal with the fans too. So you're not the only one. I will tell you, I mean, during the postseason, I was jogging through the town, and people were stopping their car and saying, hey, great, Reese is fantastic. He just hit the home run, right? Oh, fantastic. Then after the one game when we went through, I was jogging through town, somebody stopped their car and said, what are you doing? You got to get rid of Rhys Hoskins, right? And so it comes with the territory. So we deal with it too. But I think that's why Sam talked about, you can't, it's a long season. It's a long season of ups and downs. And even in the postseason, it's a long season of ups and downs, even though it only be a 1 month or 7 games in a World Series, or in our case, 6. So you have to deal with that. And I think the way I would look at it, and I'm only a little surprised because when I talk about the city of Philadelphia and in many ways a blue-collar type of nature and work ethic, Rhys Hoskins works his tail off. He works as hard as anybody possibly can, and he does the best to try to make himself the best player possible. But he's not a Gold Glove first baseman, for example. I mean, it's just he's made himself better. He also is a somewhat streaky hitter. So when it's going good, it's great. And when it's not going good, it's not so good. But the one thing about him is, like Sam said, consistency of showing up in the clubhouse, working hard. You couldn't find a better person than this. So to me, it's one of those that you have to understand your players. And there's a lot of good things about him, but he's not the perfect player, right? I mean, that's just the way it is.
Like he's going to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, again, anointing that, but we are tendering him a contract. So once you tender a contract, unless something comes up, yeah. So you could tell him that he's the leading candidate to be our opening day first baseman. How's that?
Okay, we got three finals, starting with Destiny.
This is for Sam. Outside of Painter, Abel, and McGarry, are there any minor league pitchers in the organization right now that you guys are looking at that could possibly contribute for you guys next year?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a number, particularly on the relief side. We've got some younger relievers that I think are really talented. Maybe need to shore up certain parts of their game. We've got guys like, the guy that we acquired from the White Sox this year, McKinley Moore, threw the ball really well, particularly in the second half. It's nice to see Andrew Schultz and his top end stuff just to be healthy and get out there and compete and have some success. Eric Miller's another one with some really high-end stuff we think can get big league hitters out. Dealt with some injuries this year, as he has really for most of his career. But when he's healthy, he's got big league stuff. Those are 3 that I think are probably closest to the conversation, and they're all similar in a lot of ways. They've got their warts, like most minor league pitchers do. But we feel like any number of those 3 could potentially help us in a really meaningful way.
Okay, let's finish up with Rob on the left.
Dave, one more thing with Castellanos. There's a lot of talk, obviously, about him doing work during the offseason to get back to where he was and so forth. How much of that is going to be off the field, too? I mean, you had talked about player confidence. Does there need to be sort of an effort in that regard, too, with him?
I think he deals with that. I mean, I won't get into specifics on what we have from that, but he's dealing with a lot of different things to try to get ready for next year.
Okay, if there's no further questions, thank you, Dave and Sam, and thanks everyone for showing up today. And Rob Thompson will be down momentarily.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Nice gym shoes, too.
Well, I don't jog in, so I don't listen to this people there. Here on WIP. All right.
See y'all later. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess.
Oh, it's across.
I thought from that parking lot was like Buffalo Wild Wings. That's not it.
Did you read the story? I couldn't.
No, but I was looking at the picture and I thought that's what. I googled it. Okay. There's like sources that aren't subscription.
Okay. I'll check it out.
I'm just curious what they're.
It is definitely a story. It's not a story now.
No, but I mean, it's, if they say, hey, we're trying to like build a, I mean, it would be a huge. I think it's a story where like people who don't have spring training, if you told them you can try entertainment or no, but like to like detail their sure. I'm just curious what they're. I mean, clearly they have.
You can find some. You can find some. Third base is usually.
Yeah, it's that big parking lot.
And it's not a foul.
Okay. LA Fitness and stuff.
So it's behind Joe Magic. It's.
So I have no problem.
No, it's the one what's further up.
But
So it's like
in the first base.
It's like really right next to it. Like it's like there's like if you're standing, if you're looking towards Tampa on Coachman Road, ballpark here, yeah, there's like it's a huge parking lot. There's like LA Fitness over here, right Buffalo Wild Wings.
I think it's like a ways down on 19. We're on off the bed.
I'll show you exactly where it is. I used to walk, and I used to walk. You know where?
I know where it is. I just thought it was kind of further away than I thought. It's not.
What's going on? Daycare park.
Good detective work.
Yeah, so like, so here's the stadium. First base at the stadium. Where that big park is. It's like, got it. Yeah. So it's like that. And then like Tilted Hill, it's right across the street there. Yeah. Maybe I just know it because I went to the LA Fitness a lot. Yeah. But yeah, there was like, so like.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like Borders 19 there. Yeah.
I didn't realize that the parking lot backed up that far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like contracts at the same. But like it would be interesting if like they were gonna do a big. Yeah. There's really nothing there. You know.
Yeah. I know you're very. There's just so many people. During training, he doesn't say something. Yeah. So whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, from an on-field perspective, it's not really much. It's just interesting for everyone who goes down there. So obviously the harder thing is, you know, write down. This is tomorrow. I'm just thinking about like seriously, yeah. Like how to replace them. To me, like there's like that's right. So that's like there's the second story where we said about tree patches, we said about shortstops, we said about in the past, odds and ends. But who's like is out.
All right. Oh, is that your water? You brought one? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. I didn't know if Dave or Sam left theirs. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Tom, for coming down. If you guys have questions, same as last time, just raise your hand. Have a mic passed to you. Howard in the front.
Hi, Howard.
Hello, Rob. This has been driving me crazy since the World Series.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten an answer, and I know you have an answer. It won't be the one I like, but what was Kyle Schwarber doing? 2 strikes, down 3, bunting, in that game in the 8th inning.
I think he blacked out. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think he was just, I think he was just trying to get on base, to tell you the truth.
I knew that would be an answer, but why didn't he do that with no strikes or 1 strike?
I don't know. Well, probably the third baseman was in on the bunt. He backed out with 2 strikes, and I'm just guessing. I didn't ask him that question because there were a lot of other things going on at the time.
It was driving me crazy. That's why I had to ask him.
Okay, let's go to John Clark, right behind you. Can you pass that mic behind you, John? Behind you, John. Yeah.
Rob, obviously, I think there was some hope that Bryce's, situation could heal, but obviously he's having surgery. Is there disappointment with that outcome? Have you talked to Bryce about maybe there was optimism it would have healed on its own? Is there disappointment in doing this?
Yeah, because you don't want to lose Bryce, and we won't know the extent of the injury until they get in there next Wednesday. But, and I haven't talked to any of the players. When we were finished in Houston, I told the players after the game, I said, I'm going to give you 2 weeks. I'm not going to bother you. You just go home, relax, and then I'll start calling you guys. But if you need anything, give me a call. Yeah, so you don't ever want to lose Bryce. You really don't. I mean, he's one of the best hitters in baseball, if not the best. So, but, we spent a lot of time last year without him, and guys responded, and it gave opportunities to other people to step up, and they did. So while we will be missing him and looking forward to getting him back, it'll give somebody else an opportunity.
Okay. Jimmy over here in the front right.
Hey, Rob. Could Sosa play first base on sort of an extended time? And
I think Sosa could probably play anywhere, but I think by playing him at first base, you're limiting his true value, and that's being able to run around and create a bunch of.
If you're going to need a DH early, I mean, if Reese could be an option there. Maybe improves your team. If Sosa could do it, would that be something you consider? Or
No, I'd probably put Bohm at first base and put Sosa at third.
Okay.
If Sosa's not our shortstop.
Would you do something like that, often, do you think?
It would depend on, I think, matchups and who needs a day off, and if Reese needs a day or if Bohm needs a day, that type of thing.
And with that shortstop market, it's pretty dynamic. I mean, and this team has a history of, last handful of years doing some pretty dynamic things in the offseason. Would you be surprised if you don't end up with one of those guys?
I don't know if I'd be surprised if we didn't end up with them. I mean, it all depends on the market and what Dave, Sam, John want to spend, I guess. And if we didn't get one of those guys, I'm really confident with Sosa playing shortstop every day. He's that good to me.
Okay, we go to Scott in the middle, in the front.
Have you guys told Bryson then to prepare to be a second baseman next year?
I asked Bryson at the end of the year that I said, what do you prefer, shortstop or second base? He said, big leagues. He said, it doesn't matter to me. So he's prepared to do anything.
And also, how much focus of yours, maybe not this minute, but will be on the fact that most of them played a month longer than they're used to, and so whether there's, a toll at the end of that or whatnot. I mean, how much of your focus will be on sort of thinking ahead toward how how to ramp them up for a season after a season unlike any they've ever had?
Yeah, I think we'll sort of go at it very similar to how we normally ramp them up, and then just monitor it as we go. I think you can. I mean, I was running spring training for the Yankees for a lot of those World Series, a lot of playoff series, and one of the things that I realized was that you can underwork a player, if you will, and all of a sudden they're not ready to start the season. Pitcher's not ready to start the season. He's not ready to go 100 pitches out of the gate. So you really tax your bullpen, and then when you tax people, it's like a chain, then people start getting hurt, and then other people start getting injured. So you really have to be careful with how you're doing it. I think we'll approach it very similar to what we normally do, and then just monitor it as we go.
Okay, Tim in the back.
Hey, Rob, what did you see from Castellanos this season where potentially he wasn't at the level you guys anticipated?
Yeah, I think he got off to a little bit of a slow start. Then there was some other things, having the baby and some adjustments he had to make, and I think he may have gotten tired, and then got out of the swing, and then he started to get it, and then he had the rib cage, and then it was tough coming back after that. But I expect Nick to come back into spring training. I don't know whether Kevin's going to go see him. I think there's a planned trip to go see him after the new year, and I think he's going to come into spring training, work his tail off like he normally does, and get back to being the Nick Castellanos that we know.
Was he dealing with anything in the first half of the season in terms of, I know there's speculation about a wrist injury?
No, not that I think he got hit in the wrist,
Yeah.
but I don't think that affected him.
Okay.
Okay, Dan, right in the center.
How important was it for you to have Kevin back, and do you anticipate any other changes on the coaching staff?
Everybody's back. Yeah, that's one of the things that when Dave offered me the extension, we talked through, and I voiced my opinion that I wanted the entire staff back because I thought they did an unbelievable job. And so we talked through every one of the staff members and mutually decided that we'll bring everybody back.
And real quick, and during the World Series, I mean, when you look back, is there anything you would do differently? Is there anything that's kind of gnaws at you, a decision or anything that you think might have?
Well, you might be alluding to Game 6 when I took Wheeler out of the game. But I think any decision you make, you're always kind of do a post-mortem on it, whether it worked out or whether it didn't work out. Because there's been plenty of times where I've made a decision and it's happened to work out, but at the end of the game, I'm like, all right, was that really the right decision? Well, let me think through this again. If the same thing comes up the next time, will I do it? And I'll just tell you about the Wheeler Alvarado situation. Was that sixth inning, we're up 1-0, first and third, one out. Crowd's getting into it now. I really felt that was the momentum changer in that game, and that we needed a strikeout. We couldn't let them tie the game because I felt like if we let them tie the game, the momentum shifts completely to them, and we're probably going to lose. We need to shut these guys out.
Real quick, you mentioned you're giving the players 2 weeks, but did you talk to Zach about that afterwards, a day or two later? I mean, he said he was after the game.
No, we really didn't have time. I addressed the entire club, and then all of a sudden we were gone. So, but yeah, I didn't.
Okay, Dave Murphy in the front.
Kind of on that note, you had mentioned the bullpen, kind of the cumulative effects of using a bullpen, and clearly it was a big difference between you guys and Houston, just in terms of the depth and the number of arms that they could bring out of there. How important to you is finding another arm or two who doesn't kind of leave you feeling like, I have my one spot to bring Alvarado into the game, I have my one spot to bring Sir Anthony into the game, that doesn't leave you needing 34 pitches out of Sir Anthony in Game 3. Is that an important thing for you this offseason?
Yeah, you want, really ideally, you want 8 Alvarados or Sir Anthony's, right? But so yeah, we're going through all that, and we're looking at upgrading in every area, really. But the one thing that you have to have is you have to have a couple of guys in your bullpen that have options in case you need a pitcher, in case you need length, or you need to swap somebody out. So you can't have 8 guys down there with 10 years of service that you can't, send to AAA. So
Okay, Marcus on the left.
Rob, you can pretty consistently down the stretch platoon the Stott and Marsh positions. Those are relatively young guys who, seem to have a future with this club. How important is it, or is it important, to get those guys to become, 145, 150 game players and not platoon them and let them see if they can figure out lefties on a long-term basis?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think they will figure it out. And I've seen good at bats out of Stott on left-handed pitching. I've seen it out of Marsh at times on left-handed pitching. So I think that's really important. And as I said during the playoffs, and maybe it was either an early round or the World Series, during the regular season, you won't see me manage the same way I did in the postseason because it's a marathon. So, and you've got to give people time to fail or do well, and you have to be consistent with them and get them to play and give them confidence so that they just keep growing as a player.
And you're in a clubhouse a lot for manager. What did you see from Schwarber and Hoskins this year? They seem to be like 1 and 1A as with no shade cast on Bryce, but 1 and 1A when you needed a spokesman, when you needed a thermometer on what the team was going through. What did you see from them, and can you quantify how important that was to what happened ultimately?
Yeah, I can't give you a measurement on how important that is, other than to tell you it is extremely important. And I think Reese has been this way ever since he got to the big leagues. It seemed like even the first year I was here was really his first full season. It seemed like he'd been in the big leagues for 5 years. That's how mature he was and how respected he was in the clubhouse. My first year was with Schwarber this year, so I didn't really know him coming in. Heard a lot of good things, and he's just the most unique player that I've been around as far as taking care of other people. And, he's got his own problems. He goes into slumps and things like that, hasn't hit a home run for 10 days. Everybody's asking questions about it, but he's the guy that's helping the other guys out that aren't doing well. So he's really a unique guy. Both of those guys have true leadership capabilities, and I can't tell you how important that is to have those two in the clubhouse.
Todd on the left.
Rob, you said, and I understand why you said it, that if Sosa's your shortstop next season, you're super comfortable with that. But in light of, I think, 9 hits, those final 3 World Series games, World Series record, 71 strikeouts, don't you think that this team needs another high-impact bat to kind of help you get to take the next step?
Well, as I said, we're always looking to upgrade, and yeah, would I like another bat? Sure, but all I'm saying is that if Sosa's our shortstop next year, I'm comfortable with it because he's gonna eliminate runs just by playing defense. But yeah, you're always looking to upgrade and get better bats, better arms.
And then Dave just said they're going to hold one rotation spot open for Sanchez, Falter, Painter. Explain, I guess, why you would be comfortable in that. Now, Falter pitched well enough to knock Noah out of the rotation late in the season, but then he was kind of inconsistent. Sanchez, kind of inconsistent. Painter, unknown, but obviously super talented. Why would you feel comfortable that one of those guys could be your starter every 5 days to start the season?
Well, I know Falter can do it because he did it for us this year when Wills went down and he took that rotation spot and just ran with it and pitched great for us. So I'm comfortable with Bailey, and I've seen Sanchez, although he's been a little bit inconsistent at times, I've seen him pitch very well. And I haven't seen Painter pitch, but I've just heard glowing reports on him. So I'm comfortable, and I think you always have to have young guys coming into your rotation or into your lineup so that you're youthful and energy and you're turning it over all the time. I just think that's important.
And do you think for that, maybe that 4th rotation spot, do you almost want somebody maybe a step above where Noah was at the end of the year, where Kyle Gibson was at the end of the year, more of a true number 3 type guy than maybe a number 4, number 5 type guy with, Wheeler and Nola coming off a heavy workload?
I mean, you always want a 3 more than a 4, right? So, yeah, I think that's probably the goal. Whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. But I do know that, we haven't closed the door on any of our guys either that are free agents. So, we'll just have to see what happens.
Okay, Jimmy over here on the right.
Just because that last night was such a blur, didn't get a chance to ask you what after the second inning you went out and talked to Ayasanga. What was that about?
Oh,
Was it about that pitcher?
huh?
Was it about the Houston pitcher?
No, I forget what it was about, to tell you the truth. That's an interesting question.
Interesting answer. And it was such a difficult loss and difficult night. How did you personally decompress the last, over the following days after that?
Well, I came back here and spent a couple of days here just sort of getting my stuff together, and then I went back to Canada for 3 days and then came in the other day. But it was just nice to get home and sit in my chair and just relax and think about stuff and get some sleep. It was a really good run, but you don't sleep much, just a lot of stuff going on. So I just want to relax and, catch up on some sleep.
Any other questions? Oh, Dave, right in the center. Dave, and then Dave Murphy.
I know when you got your extension and after the last game, you indicated that you really believe that this team's got some good years ahead of them with what you did, with the players coming up. I think out there in the fan base, there's a thought of, is this 93 lightning in a bottle or 07, now you take it to the next level? Why do you think that the 23 team can take it a step higher than 22?
Well, I think we've got our existing roster is really good. We all know that. It's a good club. I think Dave, Sam, the organization, John Middleton are prepared to spend some money and go out and make the team a little bit better. The other part of it is that I think our minor league system is very underrated. I think we're a lot better than people give us credit for. We've got good young pitchers coming, being starters, being relievers. We've got some position players at the lower level that are coming. So I think this success can be sustainable for a while, for a long time. But I think the people that we have in place right now is really a good club. And I just believe that we're going to get better and better. And the fact that we have the experience of playing in the postseason and playing in the World Series means a lot to players.
I guess to follow up real quick, with the expanded postseason, you guys were able to take advantage of that and get in its first year. But it was an 87-win season after a slow start. So how much going into spring next year is the emphasis going to be, let's not have to back in again. Let's get off to a fast start and give ourselves a little wiggle room.
Yeah, I think there'll be some emphasis on that. I mean, you can't – I look at seasons like this. If you're a 500 club, it's a good season. If you get in the playoffs, it's a really good season. If you win the World Series, it's a great season. So we're not looking for really good. We're looking for great. And I think that's going to be the focus on what I talk about a lot with the players. We want to be great. We don't want to be really good. We don't want to be just good. We want to be great.
Okay, Dave.
You mentioned kind of confidence in giving guys a chance to kind of show who they are or work to the back of the bullpen or whatever. Kind of Brogdon and Bellotti both, at least numbers-wise, even during the postseason, really looked like they had kind of something more to give. Do you look at it like that? What do you look at them moving forward, Brogdon in particular? Do you think he might be a guy who, if you give him the confidence and kind of run him out there, he might be able to get to a point where he can kind of be that late inning arm?
I really do, because it's high velocity and a great changeup, so he can really get left-handed hitters out. And same thing with Bellotti. Bellotti's got the great slider, swing and miss slider, who gets right-handers out. But Brogdon, at the start of the year, if you remember, he was lights out. He was really good. And then he got sick. And it took a while for him to come back, and when he came back, he wasn't quite as strong, and so he was working through all those things, and sometimes it turns into lack of confidence, and so it's a snowball running down a hill. And by the time we got to the playoffs, he got his confidence back, and he started throwing the ball the way he did. And I was really proud of him because he took the ball in the postseason, and he had one bad outing. That was his first outing in the postseason. And I talked to him the next day, and I said, what's going on? And he says, just nervous. I said, well, that's normal, man. You're not going to be as nervous next time out. You're going to feel really comfortable. And he was, and he ran with it, and he pitched great for us. So I'm really have a lot of confidence in him.
And completely different question. With the shift and the new rules, Schwarber's a guy, I mean, you couldn't help but think every time he, grounded out the shallow right field, what will that be next year? Do you think, is it as simple as all those are hits for him next year? Or what is your...
Probably not all of them, because now I think positioning becomes a little bit more important, because you've only got two guys on each side, so you got to put the guy in the middle in the right spot. You can't put two guys there. So not all of them will be hits, but he's gonna have a higher batting average, I would think, next year. I think most guys will. I think you'll see offense go up.
Okay, Marcus on the left, and then Alex.
Rob, you were asked a sort of a philosophical question in your last press conference about what did you learn about yourself, and the thing you said immediately was, I can do it. Like, now you know you can do it. Sitting in your chair in Toronto or outside of Toronto, did you get any deeper knowledge about or reflection about what you went through and what you learned about yourself?
I think so. Being able to go through it, and because my brother asked me, he said, "So what was it like being in the World Series?" And I said, "Well, it really felt like the World Series before the game and after the game, but during the game it was just the game." And so I learned that even though it's a World Series game, it's still just a game, and I could relax and think clearly. And the second part of that is that I can handle adversity. And because I know that, there's a lot of adversity taking Wheeler out of that game and putting Alvarado in. And until that type of major thing happens, you don't know really whether you're going to be able to handle it or not. And I can, because I just believed in that move, and that's okay.
Okay, Alex.
Regarding the spot in the rotation that's going to be used by a younger pitcher. Obviously, you've seen Falter and Sanchez in big league scenarios, but Painter, someone like Painter, he's an unproven entity in the big leagues. Just what's your comfort level with a guy like that earning a spot out of the rotation, given that we haven't seen him?
Well, I got to see him first, and then I can kind of give you an update on my comfort level. But I have to see him first, But I'm really comfortable with Falter because I've seen him, and he's pitched well for us. So time will tell with Painter and McGarry and all those guys. But they've got to, they haven't even pitched in a big league spring training game yet. So we got to let them do that first and see what their comfort level there is. And then it's a whole nother animal once you turn the lights out here and pitch in this environment. So, but from what everybody said, these guys are high character guys that can handle that type of thing.
Anything further for Toms? Okay, Dave, right here in the front.
Thanks, Howard. We'll see you later.
So, just take a guy like Painter, even just theoretically. He won't be 20 until, I think, April 10th. He's got 109 innings since high school. Just the math would tell you that if he's in your rotation on opening day, and even if you're as strict as you possibly can with him, he's going to be...
Yeah, you have to monitor his innings.
So, is that even feasible for...
Well, I'm not exactly sure how many innings he had last year and how far we're going to bump him up this year, whether it's big leagues or minor leagues or whatever. But, there's ways to do it, give him time off and have shorter starts and things like that. But that's a big time arm, and we have to be really careful with it.
All right. Oh, Bill, back right.
You mentioned how long you've been coordinating spring trainings and the familiarity you have with teams that have gone deep. Is that still going to be your role now that you're the manager, or have you thought about passing that on to somebody else.
Well, yeah, so Mike Calitri will do the paperwork, but I always go down to spring training on February 1st. That's just what I've been doing for the last 25 years. And Mike lives in Tampa, so we'll be working together on it until spring training starts, and we can get ahead and we can get 5, 6, 7 days out pretty easily. But he'll be doing the paperwork on it.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Oh, I want to say one thing, because I said this to Matt the other day, and I said it to him today. I just appreciate the respect and that you all have given me this year, and it's been a lot of fun for me to get to know you and to do this on a daily basis. But and I understand that there are opinions and there are tough questions to ask, but I know that that's part of the gig. But you guys have treated me with nothing but class and respect, so I appreciate it.
Thanks, Thompson. Thank you. Thanks, guys, for coming. Is interested, the dining room is open upstairs, free of charge. You're free to eat, have lunch up there. It's going to close in about an hour, so if anyone wants to go up there.